You hear that, little guy?
Whatever, Bill. Everything would stop for the games, including war. Thousands of spectators would gather from all over the Greek world to watch the brutal fights. One fighter from Sichion was nicknamed Fingertips because he'd start each fight by breaking his opponent's fingers. Strictly a man-only event, any woman caught even watching the Olympics was thrown off a cliff.
The games were sometimes blood events. They were very dangerous. Death was not excluded. But the champions were crowned with laurel leaves, and they had their names written in stone pillars.
MMA fighters and other martial artists today use the signal of tapping out to show their submission to the opponent. And it was here in the Olympic pankration fights that a form of tapping out was invented.
But it was considered the greatest humiliation a fighter could face, and many chose to die rather than end the bout in disgrace. The most common cause of death in these Olympic fights was suffocation caused by fighters in chokes refusing to tap out.
To train for our chance at glory, we headed to the neighboring valley of Argos, home to some of ancient Greece's greatest pankration athletes.
There, we met Nektarios Lykodopoulos and a group of students engaged in a fierce sparring practice. I recognized these moves from my own MMA experience.
These guys are taking these guys down quick. Rolling knee bar, double legs.
It's amazing how similar this ancient Greek fighting style is to modern MMA.
So you guys aren't real big on throwing a strike, you just want to get in there and take them down, huh?
We're giving emphasis to the takedown because we believe that the takedown is the half winning.
Yeah.
It's half of winning the takedown?
Yes.
All right.
Or half of losing, depending on what side you're on. Let's go to the ground a little.
Nektarios tells us that like modern MMA, more than half of modern pankration fights end up on the ground. And that means some of the most important maneuvers in a pancratius arsenal are takedowns, to drop an opponent to the mat and kick off a ground offensive. Sounds like just the tools we need to face a champ. We began with one of the most effective throws, the Arpag Padayan, or double leg takedown.
To execute the takedown requires perfect timing. Eyeing an opening, the pancratius drops low and penetrates his opponent's defense.
Grab his legs, bring the other foot together.
Using the power of his hips and thighs, he lifts his opponent straight up into the air before body slamming him back to the ground.
The higher you can lift your opponent in this move, the faster he'll hit the ground. It's not just your force working against him. His acceleration due to gravity can mean his head hits the ground with a 3,500-pound impact. On a hard surface like concrete, this is more than enough to cause a serious brain injury.
Put your head up, his shoulder back. When you have it here, use your head to sink him.
Seems simple enough, my football and wrestling experience.
Under the punch, in.
Okay.
Oh, double leg up.
Sink him. Very nice.
This double leg takedown is great. Once you get a hold of his legs, you drive up and through, use a lot of the same power you use on a football field when you're driving through a block, get him up and slam him down. Then once he's on the mat, it's all wrestling from there, baby.
So that's cool now if the guy is punching. But, a lot of times when you're fighting, you don't have time to do that because you're clinched, like you're in here.
Yes.
So is there a move that you guys really like to use that works really well from the
Yes,
clinch?
there are some moves. Usually use the shoulder throw. On pancration, we call it ripsi omu.
Okay.
Shoulder throw.
Can I see it?
The shoulder throw begins in a clinch, but instead of holding your opponent, you reach up and hook his forearm, while simultaneously turning his back and pulling him forward and off balance. Once he's moving, you get your hips under his and roll your torso forward, heaving him up and over your shoulder. Like a throw in judo, This move demonstrates the effectiveness of combining two simple machines to achieve a complex task. First, the opponent's arm works as a lever to optimize your control. Second, your own back serves as a pivot point for the throw. The strength and stability of your back allows you to throw a much heavier opponent than in a move that requires you to lift him.
I'm gonna come in striking.
Oh. God, I gotta stop eating so much food.
And try to trap his hand here.
Okay.
Here. And then I'm stepping here. Hips low.
Exactly.
Here. And then into the arm bar. Crack it like a stick.
Very
There
nice.
you go.
That's it. There you go.
This is a really good move to use if the guy that I'm fighting is going to be bigger than me, because I'm going to be able to use his own size advantage against him. This is actually a lot like a judo throw we learned. Is it kind of similar, like where you're stepping and you're throwing them? The only difference,
Of
I
course,
guess.
similar. Actually, it's a move, it's a technique. You can see it in many martial arts around the world.
Some historians believe judo may have gotten the technique from pankration by way of one of the greatest Greeks in history, Alexander the Great. They didn't call him great for nothing. By the age of 33, he'd conquered pretty much every country in the civilized world. His soldiers would have trained in the Greek martial art of pankration and brought their knowledge with them as they conquered. Some historians credit Alexander with spreading pankration to India following his invasion in 326 BC. From India, Buddhist monks may have brought aspects of the art to China, which in turn planted the seed for all Asian martial arts, including Kung Fu, Karate, and Muay Thai.
Between our stand-up strikes and throws, we're beginning to feel pretty confident about the standing portion of the fight.
Now it's time to learn how to survive when the fight goes to the ground. For our next move, we're going to train with a former bodyguard and MMA cage fighter.
And learn a technique that comes from the toughest warriors in Greek history, the Spartans. This is Dimitri Glazakos, a direct descendant of Spartan warriors. A former bodyguard and MMA fighter, Dimitri is an expert in ancient Greek close-quarter combat.
But now, would this be the type of knives that like a Spartan would carry back in the day?
Yeah, it is very heavy.
Oh, wow. This thing is really heavy.
Over a foot long and weighing almost 7 pounds, these short swords were designed to cause the maximum amount of damage. But Spartans had other ways to do damage too. Spartan soldiers had to train in pankration for 23 fanatical years, starting at the age of 7. They were such serious fighters, they boycotted the Olympics because eye gouging and biting were forbidden.
Instead, Spartan soldiers used their unique form of pankration for just one thing: to kill an opponent on the battlefield. In ancient warfare, 2 lines of armored soldiers would meet in a clash of shields. In the chaos of battle, it was all too easy to lose both your weapon and your footing and find yourself on the ground. But because of the armor, strikes were of limited use, so the Spartans developed other killer moves.
So I guess this would pretty much break his neck, huh?
Exactly.
So these are some of the grappling moves that you would incorporate if it went to the ground?
Yeah.
Works for me, Bill.
Yeah, they look great. Can you show us some of them?
Yes, we have to go to the gym, I think, and do some work.
Okay.
Let's go to the gym.
Back at the gym, Dimitri told us that the first step to Spartan ground fighting was securing dominant body position.
Try to go down. They go there, you know. I don't want to be trapped somewhere like.
Known as passing the guard in MMA circles, the key is to shoot past the legs, plant a knee, and destroy your opponent on the ground. So we've seen a lot of statues of the Greek soldiers. They have another guy with his arm behind his back. You know, it's really iconic. Is there a move like that in pancration we can use?
Yes, we're going to do something similar.
This was our first ground maneuver, a killer joint attack inspired by a Spartan disarming technique called the acrotia or shoulder lock. And it hurt.
So is this what you're talking about, Bill?
Yeah.
Is this the move?
This is it.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Want to see it again?
Nope.
Okay.
For this shoulder lock, you first throw your opponent to the ground. When he's there, squeeze his head between your thighs and twist his arm behind his back, locking the shoulder joint and leaving him at your mercy.
So this puts pressure on the shoulder.
Exactly.
Bill, does it feel like there's pressure there?
Yeah.
This move uses your opponent's arm as a lever working against him. The greater the torque on his shoulder, the greater the pain inflicted. And exceeding the joint's normal range of motion causes more than just pain. The soft tissue, muscles, and the bone can all be seriously damaged by this pressure.